feeling?
Sad.
Look at
Angry. Afraid.
Oh, look at him. Afraid. Scared or afraid? That's the same feeling. Afraid. How about? Sad. Show me sad. Sad is all that makes you cry. You ever get so sad that tears come out? Yeah. What do you think this one is feeling?
Happy.
Now show me happy, because I know you guys are happy right now. That's going to be an easy one to show me. All right. Raise your hand if you'd like to take a risk and put your hand in this bag and pick a feeling. But I want you to put your hands out just for 1 minute and think about a time you felt like that when you get it. Be thinking, if you pick happy, of a time you were happy, or if you pick sad, and you can tell us a time that you felt like that. What made you feel like that? Okay, who would like to take a risk? Okay, Joseph. What did you pick? Excited. Excited. How do you look when you're excited, first of all, Joseph? How do you... Yes. Now tell us a time when you felt like you wanted to say yes.
Because I wanted to go to Chuck E. Cheese.
And did you get to go? And you were excited? Were you excited while you were waiting to go?
Yep.
Yeah, that made you excited.
All right. So she does, those children are a little bit older than the children you work with, but you can do the same type of a lesson where they can pick a feeling. She does so many great things. She asks them to take a risk. Who wants to take a risk? Because she's built such a safe community in her classroom. She gives children opportunity to identify the feeling, talk about a time they felt that way. What does it look like when you feel that way? And then she does this really beautiful thing where she says, were you excited? And he says, yeah. And she says, were you excited while you were waiting? And he says, yes. And that's great, because the next thing this teacher does is she talks about, well, how did you keep yourself calm when you were so excited, right? So she moves into emotional regulation, which is another thing that we want to be teaching young children. So we can teach children emotion words, we can play games, we can spin the wheel on different feeling faces, we can do dice. There's so many different ideas, and you probably have seen them all on ECLKC or on CEFL website, and I have lots of resources for you on that list. We can have children check in the morning with how they're feeling, and that's another opportunity to identify feelings. And then the next thing I want to do is just talk a little bit about some emotion regulation strategies for children. So some of the challenging behaviors that you're dealing with are because children are getting really into their kind of boiling moment and are not able to calm themselves down. And they need to have you support that and teach them strategies for calming down, right? So remember, that's one of the things that we sometimes teach at the red arrow moment, but we want to teach it proactively. So maybe on your list of words that you came up with, you wrote down tense or stressed. And that's a great word to teach young children, because they hear that a lot. Oh, I'm stressed, right? Their parents are stressed, teachers are stressed, they hear that word a lot. But what you want to teach them is kind of, what does that feel like in their bodies when they're feeling kind of tense or stressed, right? Maybe their shoulders are up, maybe they're making fists, maybe their jaw gets really tight, maybe it's like they're a tin man walking around. Maybe their stomach is clenched. So sometimes we bring in like an uncooked spaghetti noodle, right? It like looks like it could break at any moment, right? That's what it feels like when you're feeling tense or you're stressed. For some children, they might feel that way if they're disappointed, they didn't get called on, they didn't get a turn, right? For some children, they feel that way if somebody teases them. Some children feel that way if somebody threw something at them, right? Which would be maybe an okay response, right? So it's like, so children have different kind of emotions that make them feel that physiological sensation of being tense and being stressed, where what they might want to do next is hit or run or scream or bite or attack, right? So they get to that moment, okay? So we want to teach children like to identify what are the signals in their body that make them feel that way, right? That they identify. And sometimes we call that their red arrow moment, right? On a relaxation thermometer, that's the boiling point, or that's the red arrow moment, whatever it is. You're in the red when you're feeling that way. And again, some kids get there because they didn't get a turn. Some kids get there because somebody teased them. Some kids get there because they just get there a couple times a day, right? So they're feeling tense or feeling stressed. And then we teach them, this is who we want to be, right? We want to feel relaxed. We want to feel calm. Oh, we want to feel content. This is the guy we want to be, right? We want to feel this way. Happy. Things are good, right? We don't want to feel this way all day long. We want to feel this way, right? So how do we get from feeling tense and stressed to feeling that way, right? How do we do that? So we teach children to use what we call the relaxation thermometer. So we help children identify what is that red moment, right? And we ask them, what are times you felt in that red moment? Maybe times you felt like you were going to hit someone, time you felt like you were going to run away, right? And we're doing this all proactively, not in the moment. And so they're identifying those times, right? But then we're also giving strategies to get calm, right? To get calm. So one of the best ways to do that, which is not a surprise, is to take deep breaths, okay? But there's something about the breathing that's really important. So this is where, Amanda was talking about smelling the flowers and blowing out the candle. So what's really important, and people that do meditation or yoga know what this is, but the exhale is more important, okay? So where you want to get your breathing is you actually want to get your breathing to do a deep inhale, smelling the flowers, and then you want your exhale to be twice as long. Because when you're inhaling, you're actually activating in your central nervous system the fight or flight mechanism. It's why you hyperventilate when you're stressed out, right? Like, right? So the inhale activates that. The exhale activates what's called the parasympathetic part of your central nervous system, which is the calm part. Okay? So you want to think about how you can help children take these deep breaths, but remember that the exhale is really important, okay? So they're going to inhale, and then you want to say, let's try and exhale for 3. 1, 2, 3. Well, let's see if we can exhale for 4. Can we do that? 1, 2, 3, 4. So you want to get it to their exhaling being the length, right? That's what activates the calming part for them, okay? So if you tell children to take 3 deep breaths and they're upset and agitated, they're going to hyperventilate, right? So think about how you can have them blow out. So maybe you want to add to that, not just blowing out 1 candle, but maybe they're blowing out 5, right? Okay. Maybe blowing out 5 fingers. All right, so that's how, and that's helpful for all of us to remember that when we're feeling stressed, when we're in that moment, that deep breath in, that exhale out, that's when you're going to feel the calmest. Okay. Children can make their own relaxation thermometers. It can be a fun small group activity. They can talk about a time they felt in the red and how they got in the blue. Lots of fun things that you can do. And then I wanted to show, we're going to hope this video clip works too. So this is an incredible Head Start teacher named Tony in Seattle. And we were doing a lot of work around the relaxation thermometer and emotion words. And there was one little boy, the little guy that's in kind of the denim shirt. His kind of red moment was actually disappointment. So he wasn't a super aggressive kid, but if he didn't get his way, he was like, everyone knew it, and he would run away, he would turn away, he would throw a tantrum. It was really hard for him to regulate if he did not, like if you didn't choose the book that he wanted to read, if he didn't get the color cup that he wanted. So disappointment for him was that red area. So so this teacher has been doing a lot of work with her class around this, and so we happened to catch this moment when we were in there where the little boy, one little boy gets a sticker, and the little boy in the denim shirt does not. So let's watch what happens. Oh.
Are we stuck to that?
Congratulations. Keep up the good work.
I eat my
Okay. All right. Let's go. You what? Oh, really? Hurt your feelings? You're feeling a little disappointed? Oh, that's a problem. Oh, he's taking a deep breath. Look at Louise. Simran is taking a deep breath because he said he was feeling a little disappointed. That's a great solution. All right. Feeling better? That's great. I'm glad. All right, well, there's a friend. A friend comes to your rescue. That's great.
All right. That teacher is amazing. So the year that we shot that, she got married and she had all of her Head Start class in her wedding. It was pretty cute. I know, isn't that incredible? She's pretty great. So she does so many things well there that I know that when I was a teacher I would not have been able to do. But one of the things is that she doesn't give him a sticker, right? She taught him a big lesson there. He can deal with his disappointment, right? He doesn't quite have the words yet. He says, it hurt my feelings. And then she remembers that when they did that activity, that disappointment is the word that we use in the red area for him. So she says, you're feeling a little disappointed? And that triggers for him how he's going to get calm. And she's also built a community where friends know to support each other when you're doing that hard work. But let me also tell you something about Tony that she would not mind me sharing. When we first started working with her to build these strategies, her classroom was not in a great space. We really had to work on those prevention strategies first before we could get there. We really had to make sure it was well organized so she could stand away and do that type of individual work. We really had to work on engaging activities and environments and making circle time something somewhat fun for the children to experience. There was a lot of work that we had to do, but now every year, she's still teaching, and every year those are the types of experiences that she has for young children and with young children. Okay, I'm going to blow through some of these things. You've probably heard of the turtle steps and Tiny Turtle, and you can find all of the turtle stuff on Cephal, and we have a reference to that. I'm going to give you 2 more tips before I step down. So number 2 is really easy. Number 2 is when in doubt, teach. So if children are having challenging behaviors in your classroom, I really want you to go back to that behavior equation. I want you to think about what message they're sending, what is the function of that behavior, and teach them a more appropriate way to get their needs met in a positive, proactive way. So one of the things that you have up here is kind of an old one now, but it's still very relevant, that Tom Herner said, where he basically is making the point, right? If children don't know how to drive, we teach. If they don't know how to read, we teach. If they don't know how to do math, we teach. But when children don't know how to behave, we're still kind of stuck in this, like, do we teach? Do we punish? Do we teach? And I want you to dwell on teaching for young children that are looking to you to support them. You're going to make the difference in their lives, just like Tony did for that little guy Simran, where he's able to handle his disappointment, right? You're not going to maybe get to 0. I also want to point that out. But if you got a child from engaging in, spitting 80 times a day to spitting 20 times a day, that's huge, okay? Huge. So you're so incredibly important to be for these children. All right. And teaching children problem solving things. We're going to skip some of this stuff. And I'm going to get to number 1. So the number 1 strategy for being able to provide positive behavioral support for young children with challenging behavior is taking care of you. Now, I am guessing that I've talked to some of you, and I've heard a lot about you from your leadership, that so many of you chose to work in early childhood because you wanted to save children. You wanted to inspire young lives. You wanted to help raise Louisville, and that is why you're doing this work. You are all superheroes, right? And there are days that I bet you feel like Wonder Woman doing this incredible work, right? And then I bet there are days that you feel kind of like that, right? It's a little bit different. Not feeling maybe it as much as other times. The difference often between our effective and our ineffective moments has so much to do with our own emotional health and well-being, right? It has so much to do with what we're bringing into the classroom. And so my number 1 tip is to take care of you, and I'm going to give you a couple strategies. Amanda's heard this story before. Because of a awesome 14-year-old girl that I get to raise, I've gotten into roller derby. I never imagined myself being a roller derby bouts before. I didn't even know they were called bouts. But I spent a lot of time there because my daughter does it. And I realized that, oh my gosh, there's so much about resilience in this like derby behavior, right? Sometimes you have to push through, sometimes you get pushed out, you got to get back in. But there's one thing that is really, that I think about a lot, and that is when they first teach these young girls and women to do roller derby, they say the thing that we want to teach you to be the best derby player is we want to teach you how to fall, right? How to fall. And it's not just that you have to learn how to fall like when you're skiing or whatever, but it's because they said if you want to be the best derby player, you got to fall a lot. Because every time you fall and you get back up again, you are physically stronger. Can you imagine getting back up on roller skates? You are physically stronger. But you've also learned something, right? I've learned like, oh, I can't go straight. I got to go a little sideways. Oh, sideways didn't work this time. I got to go a little bit of a different angle. Every time you fall, you got to get back up and you learn something. You're stronger physically and mentally. Here's the other thing they say though. When you fall small. So I don't know if you can see in the picture, there's one gal that's kind of crouching down like this. Because what they say is like, yeah, everyone's going to make some mistakes, going to make some hiccups along the way, right? Life has ups and downs. But they want the children the gals to fall small. Fall a lot, fall small, get up and learn from it, but don't wipe everybody else out in the process, right? Don't make it huge, don't make it bigger, right? Be resilient. Fall, get back up again. What can you learn from it? Don't take anybody else out that doesn't need to be taken out, and move on. So let me give you a couple practical strategies for building your resilience and wellness. One thing that I've talked about a bit is that we have inherent in us, it is the human experience, a negativity bias because it's what's helped us survive over time. We survived because we didn't go out of the cave. We were too scared and threatened, right? So that negativity bias where we're looking for threats, where we're paying more attention to the negative than the positive is something that is stuck in us. You have to work extra hard to find the positive, right? So it means that if you're having a bad day and you go into a classroom and a child's having challenging behavior, it's gonna get even worse, right? That negativity bias. So we have to work extra hard to be positive. All right, so one strategy is move your telescope. So maybe you've been to San Francisco, been in the Bay, and they have these telescopes where you can look at Alcatraz, and some of them you can't move. All you can see is Alcatraz, right? If our telescopes get stuck on just looking at the negative, because that's maybe what we're prone to do, we're going to miss all these other positive things that are happening around. So when you feel like you're getting fixated just on the negative, if the only thing you can think about in a situation is the negative thing, move your telescope, right? Move your telescope. We talk about identifying positive facts. And the positive fact for you right now at this moment, if you're having a really negative bad day, the positive fact for you might be that your chair hasn't collapsed, right? That you're still able to sit in a chair, right? Maybe that is a positive thing. That you were fed a healthy meal. That you're spending time with your colleagues, right? So move your telescope and identify at least a few positive facts if you find yourself kind of slipping to the negativity bias. All right, here's the other thing is to ask yourself, are you stuck at a red light? So we can sometimes, at every moment, when something happens, we can have red light thinking or we can have green light thinking. And this is similar to what we talked about earlier. Your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors are all intertwined, right? So let me tell you an example of red light and green light thinking. So let's say this is a situation where you were trying to save a little bit of money and you managed to save a little bit of money, but all of a sudden a bill came that was unexpected, right? Here's an opportunity to have red light or green light thinking. In the red light thinking, you might be thinking, well, this is hopeless. I'll never be able to save any money. How are you going to feel? You're going to probably feel depressed and defeated. And how are you going to behave? You're going to give up saving. But you have an opportunity to think of some green light, right? Green light thinking might be, well, that sucks because I'd saved some money, but now I have to pay this bill, but at least I had money saved up to pay the bill. I'm going to feel, and I might have to just think of a plan to plan for these types of bills along the way, and how I'm going to feel. I'm not going to feel fantastic by any means, but I'm going to feel a little bit more in control and a little bit more hopeful. And then how am I going to behave? I'm going to try my saving strategy again with some modification. So every moment, that's just an out of the classroom example, but out of the classroom examples so often come into our classroom behavior. So think about, are you stuck at a red light? Can you shift into some green light thinking sometime? Here's another one. Sometimes we get caught in a worry storm. So it's like we're like a snow globe has been shaken up, and all we can see are worrisome thoughts, right? And they just spin. We go from getting a negative observation to, like imagining now I'm going to be homeless and on the street because I don't have a job, right? So we just spin ourselves up, and we get totally stuck in this worry storm, and we can't proceed positively. I can't interact and support children positively because I'm so in my thoughts here. I'm just stuck in this whirling, swirling snow globe of worry. So if you start to feel like you're spinning and in that situation, it's an opportunity for you to just give yourself a break to let your thoughts settle. So I heard earlier somebody in your program said tapping out. Great opportunity. If you're feeling so anxious and worried and swirling, right? Maybe it's about a child's behavior, maybe it's about something else that's happening. Tap out. Let the snow settle. Thoughts are just thoughts. And all the thoughts you have in your head, I guarantee you, are not true. Thoughts are just thoughts. Let them settle. Step back and be objective. And just say, well, that's a worrisome thought. Well, that's a sad thought. Yeah, that's kind of a bothering thought. Just be objective and let them settle. They're just thoughts. They're not reality. And that's a time for you to then switch into taking a mindful stop and thinking about positive facts. So stop, take a breath. Remember that we want inhale and we want that exhale to be really long. Take a breath or two. Observe what you can. This is a good time to reground yourself. Like I can feel we sometimes say notice 5 things. I can feel my feet on the floor. I can feel my hands on the podium. I can see faces looking at me, right? Taking myself out of my swirling thoughts, and then proceed positively. All right, I'm going to go through, let me go back to this one. So this is the other one that we call embrace your second place. So I'm a late incoming sports fan, so I didn't really do sports. I didn't grow up in a sports family at all when I was growing up, but now I'm like super into sports because of the Seahawks and all that, blah, blah, blah. So I'm kind of late incoming in this. But one of the things I've become really fascinated by are athletes' press conferences after they lose. Because one of the things I've noticed is that professional athletes, college athletes, after they lose, most of them, not all of them, it's like the most incredible kind of script for resilient thinking that you could come up with. Because often what they do is they say what they did well, what they need to improve upon, they thank their supporters, and they look forward to the next opportunity. So my message to you would be embrace your second place, right? Think about when you've had a bad day, if you've had an upsetting observation, is to embrace that and say, what did you do well? Because you're doing something well. What did you do well? What can you do better? Thank who's supporting you, and look forward to your next opportunity. So embrace your second place. And I'm going to say exercise, eat well, get good sleep. And the last one is gratitude. I'm just going to spin through these pretty quick. Gratitude. So this is actually a scientifically studied phenomena that when people express more gratitude in their lives, they sleep better, they lose weight, they're healthier, and they're happier. So they did a study where they actually randomly split a group into 2, and one group kept a gratitude journal, not even every day. They just once in a while during the month wrote down things that they were grateful for, and the other group didn't. And at the end of the month, they compared their stress, their weight, their physical health, their sleep habits, and they see the significant difference. So expressing gratitude is an incredibly resilient way to build your positivity in your life. So think of people that you need to thank. Think of every day what you're grateful for. You can do this with children. You can end your day with a gratitude circle and have children express something that they're grateful for, because you're never too young to start engaging in gratitude. You can write a thank you card when you get home today to somebody that made a difference in your life. Maybe somebody Amanda asked you to think about today that made you feel great. And if they're still around, send the letter to them. Or even better yet, show up at their door and read the letter to them. So gratitude is really powerful. And with that, I'm going to end, and I'm going to say keep calm and teach on, and I'm going to turn it over to Amanda.
So I'm going to get us almost to closing. We're down to the wire. Roll your shoulders back. All right, good. Did you do the smell the flowers and blow out the candles? You're all right with that? You might need to do another one or two just to get to the end. On the tables, you all have a little quiz. It's going to be graded. There'll be no curve. And no, it's not that kind of quiz at all. You don't have to do it now. It's a quiz I got from the Child Care Information Exchange, which sends out a daily little, often inspirational newsletter thing. And the title of it is How Institutional Are You? An Unscientific Quiz. And it's about the number of children that in America, young children who spend time in what is sometimes called institutional care, right? So somehow in our society, we've some of our school system in some ways a little factory-ish, and we've gotten the idea that we can teach young human beings the same thing at the same time in the same way, even though we are absolutely certain that is not the way that young human beings really learn. And one of the things that makes me laugh is when we talk about adult learning and the needs of adult learners, which are astoundingly similar to the things we say about the needs of young children, right? You have to be active, it has to be engaging, you can't present, a certain number of hours, which we violated that, but we knew you were an advanced crowd. And those rules are actually the same for kids in kindergarten through 12th grade too. And in Head Start we talk about individualizing. So we have got to make our teaching and learning environments not institutional. They have to be places where people can learn about themselves and their capacity. And can you put up my PowerPoint, which I have no idea what it's called, but it's a little challenge for you. It's on that flash drive. It might be Joy. That's the name of the PowerPoint, but you can't tell if I named it that just because that's what's on the slide. It could have been something else. There it is. Perfect. So what I want to talk to you is about joy. If you are a coach, an education manager, a lead teacher, a principal there, we talked to them yesterday, somebody who gets to visit classrooms at all, I want you to look for joy in the classroom. I think we saw some joy in some of the clips that Gail showed us. I want children to be joyful. I hope the staff can be joyful. I want there to be humor in your classrooms, excitement, some of those cool words I bet you wrote down that were kind of positive emotion words. It should be fun to go to work. It should be exciting to get to school and hear what your kids are going to say next. You should have people you can talk to about some of the funny things your children say and do with you in the classroom in respectful ways. The quiz is about kind of respectful learning environments where people are valued, both adults and children. Okay, here we go. I don't know how to make this work. Oh, look at that, it works now. All right, I can't read it though. All right, so this is kind of the definition of joy, but you already probably know that, the feeling of great happiness and all the other things it says on the screen. So learning and joy are highly connected. Is that a surprise to you? When people are positively engaged, when they are feeling a sense of well-being, they are more able to learn than when they feel unhappy, worried, scared, negative, judged. All those things are not associated with actually learning. So when we want to create optimal learning environments, they need to be happy places for children and adults to be together. I have no idea if that's what my notes say, but is that right? All right, good. That says something else that I can't read. So the intention and quality of the relationships that are in classrooms and the environments that you provide are produce the feelings of happiness and joy that children can have. So having genuine regard for children's perspective, remembering what it's like to be 3 or 4 or 5 years old, that's hard stuff because most of us don't have a lot of memories before we're 7, but having perspective about what it's like to be that age and kind of reimagining your room from that point of view and thinking as you think about the schedules that you put in place in your classrooms. So early childhood education needs to promote opportunities for divergent thinking. So a lot of what we think about with education has to do with convergent thinking. That means there's one answer, right? So it's, those bubble sheets, they are the most convergent thing that you can do. There's one answer to the question, it's true or it's false, or this is how you draw a person, or this is what, everybody's gonna make a project with a paper plate that's gonna look like mine. Divergent thinking is the idea that is the kind of thinking that results in innovation. It's creative. It's the idea that children might actually have ideas for things that you didn't have yet. You're still following the curriculum, but you're building in children's ideas and interests and exploring them and allowing that to happen. That is how you will get into some of the most amazing experiences with young children. I was at a curriculum fair in California last year, and it was a STEM, no, it wasn't, it was Reno. It was a STEM conference, and they had curriculum projects that teachers had done that they brought in, and one teacher talked about they were outside, and the children started talking about wind and how it was invisible, and they turned it into the whole spring exploration of this invisible force, wind, and they ended up making machines that were wind-driven and could do things. And it just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it started with this idea, this experience the kids had on a windy day on the classroom, and the teacher really listened to them, and they built on those ideas. Now, they had a curriculum, and they were following the curriculum. They did the math and science scope and sequence of their curriculum using their experiment with wind, and the teacher documented it with photographs, and she talked about how their vocabulary and expressive language changed as they built these wind machines, and again, really developing the children's ideas. So having that kind of opportunity available in your room to think differently maybe than you had been planning on. The idea of scaffolding children's development. For so long in Head Start, 50 years, we said individualize, and we recently are like, well, how do people know how to individualize, right? Like, how do you know what's the next thing we should do based on what the child knows and can do now? And our most recent early learning outcomes framework, published in 2005, has these developmental progressions or sequences, so you can see the next thing to do for children from birth to 5. And there's this app, ELOF to Go. Do you guys all have ELOF to Go? You can get it on iTunes or that other, whatever the other app store is, and it can tell you, I actually, this child is way beyond where I thought he was. So into my lesson plan, I'm going to extend this and have, these additional materials and teaching available, because some of my kids are doing it here now, and I can build on what they already know. And the idea of it must be mesmerizing. Now, this is hard. I know so much of what we said today, we keep saying this is hard. It's hard to deal with challenging behavior. It's hard to be mesmerizing. You don't have to be mesmerizing 100% of the time. Sometimes you can be taking deep breaths and rolling your shoulder back and letting your co-teacher take the lead for a little while. But at least some of the time, it has to be mesmerizing. It is so interesting. It's so exciting that while you wish you could sit in your chair and drift off a little, you can't, because you don't know what I'm going to say next. You're so focused on finding out what is going to happen in this most enriching, exciting place that you're going to stay with me no matter what. And I built your piggy bank, and we built a relationship, and this is really interesting and exciting, and I am feeling good. You know what? I'm somebody. Education is for me. 4-year-olds don't think of it that way, but I'm feeling my place. I know I belong here. So the role of the Head Start performance standards, I have to put that in. You all know that. I'm not even going to go over it. This is about curriculum and assessment and the framework and scaffolding and what we do to make sure that we're understanding how children are developing. I will say, we've said it over and over again, what we do for the parent-child relationship may be the most important thing we do in changing the trajectory of a child's life. Parents are more invested in their children than anybody else will ever be in the child's life. I like to say I'm married now. I love my husband. He loves me. I don't think he's as invested in my outcomes as my mother still is and my father was. So parents, they are so wanting to do the right things for their children. I know they don't always call you back, or they don't want to hear it if there's an issue, and they don't always do, but they are the ones who are supporting this child and will continue to support this child. So what we can do to build and strengthen and affirm that relationship is critical. They are the best experts in their own children. Even if they didn't finish high school and they are the best experts in their own child. And this isn't something else that just kind of hit me like a sledgehammer, as so many as my big epiphanies do. Just because you're low income doesn't mean you don't know how to parent or that you need parenting, right? Throughout the whole socioeconomic strata, self included, lots of us can benefit from more information about parenting, but there's nothing about our income status that makes us better or worse at parenting, right? So just displacing that feeling of like all these low-income parents have got to learn about parenting, that's going to take us a long way in kind of respect and regard and inclusion of parents as experts and partners in what's happening. I had talked to a parent last week, I think it was. She's part of a national advocacy group for parents, and they came in, two parents with two staff, and the staff person said, well, actually, these were both Head Start parents, and so, they were doing a tremendous job in talking about the need to bring parents together and advocate for, effective education and equal educational opportunity. And at one point, one parent said, well, when my child was in kindergarten, well, actually Head Start helped me beyond just, when the child was in preschool. They continued to support me and help me as my child went to kindergarten. And actually, when we had a kindergarten orientation, and I went to the orientation, and my child's kindergarten teacher was not there. And I was really uncomfortable about that. So on the first day of school, I went to the school, and I stood outside my child's classroom, and my child was sitting on a carpet with other children, and the teacher, the teacher was reading, and there was this other professionally dressed woman walking around, and finally she came over to me and she said, well, I am the Montessori expert, who are you? And the parent said, well, I am the expert in that boy sitting on the rug, and I am here because I have not met his teacher, and I'm not going to leave him alone until I meet the teacher. And she said, they were very uncomfortable, but they did bring the teacher over, and they let her meet the teacher, and she liked the teacher. And she said, and after that, every parent of a incoming kindergartner gets to meet their child's teacher before school starts, right? A Head Start parent did that, and that is the kind of work that we can do with parents, and is that kind of influence that is helping to change what happens for children, the outcome of children. That was not on my agenda, so now I'm all off schedule. Okay. All right, this means I'm almost done. So we need to trust children's capacity for learning something and something, and we need to be purposeful about the classroom society that we create. So to me, a lot of this is about children and adults working together to create a place where we see things like that clip we saw, where the little boy was able to start to think about being disappointed and taking some deep breaths and kind of moving on, where a child knew what was happening and could put his arm around him, where the they were all in that together. Did you feel that? They were supporting and helping each other. It is amazing to see a classroom where the pyramid model has been well implemented. The beginning of the year, everybody's got challenging behavior. Children are 3 and 4. They may be leaving a parent for a first time. They maybe have not been in this kind of a situation where they are learning in a group with other children. They are, 1,200 days old or whatever, 1,000 days old, and they're having new experiences, and they don't yet know what you're supposed to do. So of course they're learning. But 3-4 months into the school year, you go into a classroom with the pyramid model, and the children are coaching each other, and they are coaching themselves, and they are engaging with the teacher, and they're taking responsibility for those daily routines and what happens next and how the transitions progress. And if some child has a problem, other children are saying, let's get the basket with the problem-solving ideas, and we'll figure. You'll hear children say, I think we have a problem. They start to use that language of their own. That is an incredibly powerful tool and gift that we're giving children. We're giving them agency. Children who otherwise at that point in the year would be having meetings. The parents would be called in for meetings to talk about that child and their challenging behavior. So, this is our goals, because we want to have children who are socially confident and academically confident. Socially competent, academically confident. They have social emotional skill and emotional skills, and they know they're learners. They don't have to know every phoneme that goes with every alphabet letter. I would far rather them love the idea of reading and start to understand a book can take you anywhere. They are excited about what can happen with education. They're beginning to recognize that they have all these opportunities available because of education, that they belong there, that it's the opposite of those negative experiences where you felt like maybe somebody was judging you and saying this is not for you. Children who are academically confident say, this is for me, even when it's hard, this is for me. And there are other people who are responsible for helping me. And we have parents who are proud of their children. I think one of the best things Head Start can do is help parents recognize the incredible attributes of their children. And while a lot of children are challenging, and they do have, all children have, a whole lifetime of learning. I am still learning. I am still acquiring social skills. You probably noticed that. I got a ways to go. I'm still working on it. Young children, of course, they're working on it, but they've all got unique skills, attributes, competency, brilliance. And when you start to share some of those positive experiences with their parents and the child, I guarantee you, the best way to do it is indirectly. I said this yesterday. Tell a parent something real and a unique attribute that's a true thing about their child, and try to do it where the child can hear, but you're pretending you don't know the child can hear, because did you know indirect compliments are more powerful than direct compliments? Principals and supervisors should remember that too. So you'd say, this child has built the most incredible thing, or put his arm around his friend when his friend was having a hard time with being disappointed, and then that mother will be on the phone to her mother saying, do you know what Head Start said about him? This could be a kid that's been kicked out of 2 daycares already. You can change the whole trajectory by helping to parent. How many people are parents? I mean, how does that feel when you get that kind of positive message from a teacher? I've got a child that is one of those where I get, a message from the school with his name in the subject line, and I'm like, oh, no. And I think about when I'm going to open that. So, and a call is really, so when it's a positive message, I'm better with him that day. And we want children to fling open the door of opportunity and march through it confidently, competently, and joyfully. And this is the end. And that is the sun I was talking about. It's not recommended that you hang like that with your rain boots on and no helmet over concrete, but he's really good at it. So it has been a tremendous opportunity to be with you, and on behalf of the Office of Head Start, we appreciate the time that you took for this. We imagine you weren't that excited about coming this morning, and we really hope don't leave, you're not done, I know it's almost over. We hope we've exceeded your expectations, and we hope that we can continue to support you as you work to make this place a national showcase of early childhood education. I believe Rena has a couple words to say to you before she releases you.
So, folks, first, it's hard to sit a whole day through this, and you all have been phenomenal. So first, give yourself a pat on the back and give your friends a hand. And I want to say that you have, this is what I've seen. As I've walked around, as I've talked to different people, I've seen people engaged, talking to each other, discussing, generating new ideas, using the tools that you have been provided, asking questions, and participating, giving good examples and answers, and sharing. And there's power in that. There's power because, folks, I know, we know, there are lots and lots of good things going on in your classrooms. Lots of good things. And what we want to do is replicate that and empower one another to see more of those good things most of the time. Because as we talked about today, right, we all have triggers. Days don't always end up perfectly. You show up in the morning and somebody's out and, we've got to go to plan B. We've got to figure out who's going to ride the bus. I mean, these are very real things. To a kid comes in and they're upset and you don't quite know because they came off the bus, but you know something's different. So lots and lots of things make our day interesting and challenging. Every day is new for a teacher or for an instructional team, right? Every day is new. But that is the beauty of our job, that no matter what happens, every day we have kids that have been entrusted to us. It's a sacred trust that we have to uphold. They have been entrusted to us, and those kids' families didn't drop off their worst kid and kept their good ones at home. They gave you the very best that they had, right? So we know that. So we embrace these kids when they come to us with everything that they bring. And we give them our very best, because our job at the end of the day is to show them how to live life. I've told you this before. Our kids, they're 3, they're 4, they're 5, they're learning how to do life. And they're learning, hopefully, how to do it well. And that is up to you. Your job is to guide them and show them how to do life and do it well. And so when we choose to redirect, just as our presenters have given us great examples today, when we choose to redirect in a positive way, when we choose to show understanding, to give names and pictures to their emotions and acknowledge that, when we choose to support each other as teams, okay, we are modeling to our kids how to do life and do it well. And that is ultimately what we are about, because we are determined that we are going to be the very best we can for these kids. Because remember, we may be the only cheerleaders in their lives. We may be the only cheerleaders in their lives. And so we've got to keep that game face on. And as teams, we've got to help each other out. When one of our teammates needs a little support, we've got to help each other out, so that as a team, we can be the best cheerleaders that we can be for our kids, right? So thank you again for your great attention today. And I really want to extend a huge thanks to our presenters, Dr. Amanda Bryans and Dr. Gail Joseph. Phenomenal job. today. And many of you, I mean, people have been stopping me saying, what is dragon brain? You know, it's wonderful, folks. These resources are all available to you. Most of them are on that headstartinclusion.org. Dragon Brain, by the way, is a social story. So it's great for self-regulation, regulation of emotions. So it's all there, and we will make sure that you have access to all this information after today, and we will follow up with you. Your coaches will follow up with you to make sure we continue to learn. We're not going to absorb it all and practice this all tomorrow, right? But we're going to take it a chunk at a time, and we're going to embed it in what we do and make it part of who we are and what we do. Okay, so I am confident of that. We will do it together. We can do this, right? Absolutely. And lastly, I want to thank the wonderful people of the Region 4 Office of Head Start office team and our training and technical assistance team. So Captain Bob, who's the regional manager, Captain Bob Bayless, and for Lisa Shaw-Amos and Damon Span with our training and technical assistance team, and they will be back to help us to continue on this journey. So I thank them for yesterday and for today, for being partners with us in moving forward in the right direction. So thank you again so much. And so folks, you have been phenomenal. Again, I want to say thank you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the work that you strive every day to do well. Our transportation, our buses for the bus riders is going to be here in a few minutes. And so to all of you, drive safely home.